Hello there, Robert John Hadfield from Audiomover here again to talk about some cool vinyl. You know, a lot of the videos we made over the years in the studio were things related to cassette tapes, 8-track tapes, all the analog stuff. And then a while back we thought we need to start making some videos about records since we have thousands of them in the front office of the studio. And so we've been busting these out. Hope you like these videos. I love talking about this stuff, and I actually really loved this band. This is such a fun group to talk about. Their music was just, it was so cool, and it was perfect for the time when this stuff came out. This album, RATT, Out of the Cellar, it sold something like, I don't know, 3 million copies when all was said and done. And I remember when this came out, I actually saw them on this tour before they actually really got big. I saw them in a place called the Rainbow Music Hall in Denver, Colorado. I think it holds like 1,500 people. Man, that place was packed because these guys were just starting to catch on. This had just come out, and this album cover is kind of a classic in the heavy metal world because of this person that's on it. And this, if you didn't know, is a woman by the name of Tawny Katane. And if you ever saw the Whitesnake videos with the beautiful woman that's kind of crawling and rolling all over those cars, that's her. And she was dating the guitarist of this band at the time, and so they got her to be on the cover of this record. And there's just something about it. You know, you're a teenage boy. I mean, everything about this was cool. And so, and it was that RATT. You know, the band was originally called Mickey RATT, and then they just simplified it to RATT. And they just kind of, when they showed up and they put this out, they kind of just became took over the LA scene, and they just got huge. I mean, they were playing arenas. They were just a huge band. And I'll tell you what, for good reason. You know, it was very adolescent, teenage boy kind of music, but man, it was catchy. And they had good players. Warren DeMartini, who is really the lead guitarist, although Robin Crosby was also, you know, a pretty good guitar player. Warren DeMartini just kind of was this little bit along the lines of, I think a lot of us saw him kind of like we did George Lynch, just this really spectacular player, and it just kind of brought his own little sound into the scene. So he was great. And anyway, interesting characters in the band. Stephen Pearcy had this great voice, and Stephen Pearcy, what you didn't realize, I didn't know this until I read his biography, which is mostly a book about a rock star and his sexual escapades. It's actually a book called Sex, Drugs, Rat and Roll, Stephen Pearcy, the singer. And it's actually super entertaining reading this book. When you hear his life story, it's fascinating. But man, he was a great songwriter. And it turns out he was actually buddies with Eddie Van Halen. And he was a guitar player, Stephen Pearcy was. And so, but he ended up just being the singer of this band, RATT. And I don't know that he was a great guitar player, but that's one of the ways that he and Eddie Van Halen became friends. So anyway, Stephen Pearcy is just a really interesting character. And he had such a cool look, too. You know, this was in the early days of heavy metal, you know, and you had all the spandex and the leather and all the other stuff. But then he did this poofy thing with his hair. And it was just kind of like, what is that? And yet there was something, I don't know, just different and interesting about it. And so the band was just kind of their own little thing, and it was pretty unique. Now, let's flip this over and take a look at the other side here. This is the band, of course. There's Robin Crosby. Robin Crosby was interesting because when I saw them in concert, you can't gather this from these pictures, but he was a big dude, like linebacker kind of dude. I don't know how tall he was, but he had to be well over 6 feet tall and well over 200 pounds. He was a big guy. And he almost looked funny with a guitar on because he was such a big dude. Anyway, but he was a really important part of this band. And good-looking guy. Then there's Stephen Pearcy, the singer. Warren DeMartini, who I just mentioned a second ago, is just a spectacular guitar player. Juan Krausier, I don't know how you say his name, but he was the bass player And he was also a really great singer. And there's a very unique sound that comes when you listen to their background vocals, and it's him. And we have our reasons. That's Juan Carrassia. I can't remember which song that is. I think it's Lack of Communication, but he actually sings parts in some of the songs as a lead singer. Just little pieces here and there. But he's a great singer. And really important part of the band. Then Bobby Blotzer was the drummer. Anyway, that was RATT. And I loved all these songs. They were just really cool. I mean, Wanted Man. I'm a wanted man. Yes, I am. Anyway, Stephen Pearcy's voice was really something. You're in Trouble. Round and Round. Now, this is the song that really, really put him on the map, the song Round and Round. And you've heard the song before, even if you're not familiar with RATT. Round and round, love will find a way, just give it time. Round and round, love, I'll tell you why. Dig, looking at you, looking at me. Anyway, that was Round and Round. And it was a great song, and it put him on the map, and it was a huge, huge hit. Now, what was kind of cool about it was Milton Berle, which kind of threw people off. Like on MTV, Milton Berle was from another generation. You know, he was a comedian from from the previous generation, as far as I was concerned. You know, when this video came out, there's Milton Berle. I remember my parents talking about him and seeing him on old shows. And he appeared in a female costume and then as a male, and they were sitting around a table eating dinner or something, and rats came out. And anyway, why was Milton Berle in the video? Well, the answer was Milton Berle's nephew, and you'll see him right here, special thanks, Marshall Berle. From what I understand, for a while, I don't know if he was during this or what, but he was the band's manager for a while. And so Marshall Berle, Milton Berle's nephew, was working with RATT. And so then he got his uncle, Milton Berle, to come be in this video. It was so weird. But that was the video that he was in, Milton Berle. And then In Your Direction was a cool tune. She Wants Money was a cool tune. Lack of Communication, I love that song so much. Just these heavy, catchy tunes. All the stuff, you know, even the albums after this one, great songs, catchy songs. Back for More. This was not their first album. Well, I guess it was their first album, but they had another album before this that was in more of an EP. I think it had 6 songs on it. But that song, Back for More, was the only song that made it from the before the record contract or whatever with the EP to this album. So this is a redone version of the song Back for More. So there's another version. If you get the EP, you can hear the original version of that song. The Morning After, that was such a catchy tune. And then I'm Insane. I don't remember. The only one I don't really remember right as I'm sitting here right now is Scene of the Crime. But anyway, it was really, really cool music. And the band was kind of concerned when they went in to record the song, because the person that they'd been handed to do the the production was a guy. Here it is. Okay, so check it out. Produced by Beau Hill, a Berle Company production. Berle. This is the Marshall Berle I was talking about a second ago. But produced by Beau Hill. Now, I heard an interview with Beau Hill talking about this. Beau Hill was a trained musician, and he actually was at the time, or right before this, not long before this, trying to become a professional musician on his own, and had a band and was doing this. And for some reason, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was the owner of the record company contacted him and said, "Hey, I've got this band that I'd like you to work with and produce their album." So he shows up to work with RATT to produce this album, and Stephen Pearcy, I remember something, it's been a while since I read the book, but I remember he was thinking, who's this? Because Beau Hill was not a known entity. And so Stephen Pearcy, who, you know, this is his baby, this is his band, he wants this thing to be as great as possible. He gets handed this guy, Beau Hill, who he doesn't even know who he is, and is very trepidatious about working with Beau Hill. Well, Beau Hill, for whatever reason, he got into this, and he just turned this into a spectacular really, really great album that sold. I mean, obviously did really well. And it went so well that he went on to produce, I think, the next 2 or 3 albums after this one, which I also liked. I thought they were really good records. And so Beau Hill actually ended up being a great producer, although he didn't end up producing a lot of different records. He actually produced one of my favorite, I say this all the time, but it really was one of my favorite heavy metal albums from the 1980s, and it was a band named Kix. And it was an album called Midnight Dynamite, and oh my gosh, I loved that record. It was so amazing. I absolutely loved that one. Anyway, so Beau Hill was a good producer. He kind of just got it, and he knew how to get the sound that needed to, at least for RATT, to make them, to really make them sell and to really get them somewhere. And I think Beau Hill went on to work, I want to say he produced Kip Winger's, or Winger, produced their first album. I'm not positive about that, but I think he also worked with Warrant and later on, some later, like Europe, the band Europe, some of their stuff. But he didn't do, he didn't move on and do tons more stuff like some of these other producers where you look at their list of records and there's just, dozens and dozens of them. It really wasn't like that with Beau Hill. He just kind of was RATT. And he came in and really made them spectacular and helped a couple other bands get moving. But he had a particular sound, a particular way that he produced, and he was great at it. And so there was some real success with that. So anyway, that's, this was such a spectacular record for those of us that were, teenagers that were into heavy metal in these early days. And I think this came out, 1983? I want to look down here and see if I can tell. 1984. Came out in 1984. So this was, this was a year after Quiet Riot hit with Metal Health. So this was when heavy metal, the LA scene was really popping. Things were really, really moving. And then they just showed up and they became absolutely huge in this scene. So anyway, and there wasn't anything special on the inside, excuse me, the inside of the record. It was just typical Atlantic insert. So anyway, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Please like this video. If you just sat through this whole thing, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you have old audio videotapes you need to convert to digital, send them to Audiomover. Go to Audiomover.com. We're in the Audiomover studio right now filming these things. And if you have old audio and videotapes, and either you do or somebody else that does, send them our direction. Go to Audiomover.com and you can get an order started there. Get you your own old audio and videotapes converted to digital. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.